Before open war, before army against army, before mysticism and magic, simple swords and spears solved severe grudges. Animosity particularly simmered between House Stark and House Lannister, and boiled to a point of no return in King's Landing. Two men on opposite ends of morality met in the street, bringing their house guards with them, and a skirmish ensued that spelled condemnation for some and mortal doom for others. One such man to suffer the latter fate was Jory Cassel. Hello everyone, and welcome back to Exploring Fiction. Longtime servant of House Stark and captain of Lord Eddard's guard, Jory Cassel proved a faithful man-at-arms, helping to raise the Stark children and protect their entire family as well as he could muster. However, his best was not enough, and upon tailing Lord Eddard to King's Landing, Jory soon found himself as one of the first casualties in a quickly escalating conflict. So, who exactly is Jory Cassel, and why is he such an interesting character? Let's explore. Jory Cassel was born around 273 AC in Winterfell to Martin Cassel and his wife. He was the nephew of Sir Roderick Cassel, the Master-at-Arms of the greatest northern stronghold, and so immediately held closer ties to the Starks than most of the other houses and families in the north. At the time of Robert's rebellion, Jory was present at the wedding of Eddard Stark and Catelyn Tully in Riverrun, and was even noted at being amusingly hasty during the bedding ceremony. However, the light-hearted spirit of his youth was dampened during the war, as his father Martin perished fighting with Lord Eddard against the famed members of the Kingsguard at the Tower of Joy. Once Robert Baratheon ascended to the Iron Throne, Jory joined his uncle Sir Roderick in direct service to House Stark, acting as Eddard's captain of the guard for 8 years. Aside from his formal duties, he also took an active role in helping to raise and teach the Stark children. He taught Robb, Bran, and Jon Snow to fish, accompanied Robb and Jon with their father on hunts, sparred with Robb, Jon, and Theon in the yard, chased Bran across the rooftops at the behest of Catelyn whenever the boy attempted a climbing adventure, and jovially disciplined the often quarreling sisters, Sansa and Arya. By the time of the current narrative, Jory Cassel's features were quite defined, most notably his wry smile and average looks. From his years of loyal service, Jory became a close confidant of Lord Eddard, and offered adequate skill with weapons required for a man of his status. In the field, Jory wore mail under unadorned plate armor of a gray-blue hue, as well as a thin cloak, with his trusty sword at his hip. Appearing for the first and only time in the narrative in A Game of Thrones, Jory is seen at the side of Lord Eddard Stark as usual, accompanying him and his sons on their trek into the north. He watches as Lord Eddard beheads Garrod, the deserter of the Night's Watch, and is also present when the company finds the litter of direwolf pups on their way home. Possibly more right than he knows, Jory points out that the manner of death of the direwolf mother, having taken an antler to the throat, may be an omen of some kind, especially as her pups were probably born after her death. After returning to Winterfell, Lord Eddard sends Jory south to meet King Robert Baratheon on the King's Road in order to escort him safely to his destination. King Robert stays in the north for as long as needed, and Jory is one of the men to join him in boar hunting in the Wolf's Wood before he departs for the capital once more. Robert doesn't leave alone, however, as he enlists Lord Eddard to be his new Hand of the King after the untimely death of their mutual friend, Lord Jon Arryn. Eddard appoints Jory as his captain of the guard and bids him come along to King's Landing. On their journey, Arya's direwolf Nymeria assaults Prince Joffrey Baratheon in a fit of self-defense, and Jory is the first to come across the hiding daughter of Winterfell. Knowing Arya doesn't want to see her wolf killed, Jory helps her throw stones at Nymeria to scare her into the wild, and assures Arya that such a fierce creature will undoubtedly survive out in the open. Cersei Lannister, Queen of Westeros and mother to Joffrey, is not satisfied, however, and orders instead for Lady, Sansa's direwolf, to be killed in Nymeria's place. Reluctant to stir up any more trouble, Lord Eddard agrees, but only if he is the one to execute the beast, and he bids Jory to fetch him his great sword Ice. Eddard performs the act, and Jory bids 4 of his men to escort the wolf's bones back to Winterfell. The group finally arrives in King's Landing, and as he now finds himself captain of the guard to the acting Hand of the King, Jory Cassel receives newer, finer garments, including a pristine new cloak of gray fringed with white. The coastal city is much livelier than the north, however, and at the behest of his liege lord, Jory dispatches 20 of his 50 northern guards to aid the Gold Cloaks, the city watch of King's Landing, to keep the peace during the tourney of the King's Hand. Almost immediately, Lord Eddard sets to work on finding answers, and Jory aids him in searching for the possible cause of Jon Arryn's death. Jory attempts to speak with Sir Hugh, a knight from Jon Arryn's kingdom, but the young man refuses to talk. Instead, Jory learns some possible clues from 3 other sources, and is tasked by Lord Eddard to begin visiting brothels, as one of the sources revealed he'd seen Jon Arryn and Lord Stannis Baratheon visit one together. Somewhat amused by his task, though still disturbed, Jory does as his lord commands. The day of the King's Hand tourney arrives, and Jory participates with a valiant effort. In the joust, he unhorses Sir Horace Redwine and one of the many Frey combatants, but is defeated by Sir Lothor Brune in a tilt that comes down to the king's decision. Soon after his defeat, Jory can only watch as Sir Hugh is killed in his joust against Sir Gregor Clegane, the Mountain, and surely finds the scene suspicious, as the young knight clearly possessed information on Lord Jon Arryn. However, the festivities carry on, and Jory is forced to wake Lord Eddard in the middle of the night to inform him of King Robert's intention to enter the melee. Only through convincing by Lord Eddard and Sir Barristan Selmy does Robert realize he can no longer participate in such activities. But fun is fleeting, and after the conclusion of the tourney, Jory and Eddard return to their investigation. On one faithful day, Jory trails Eddard to Shataya's brothel so they can see for themselves Robert's bastard daughter, Bara, who is raised there. On their return to the Red Keep, the pair and their men are ambushed in the streets by Sir Jaime Lannister and his own loyal troops. A skirmish breaks out, and along with 2 other Northerners, Jory Cassel is the first to die in the spark that becomes the War of the Five Kings. Sir Jaime informs Eddard that Jory's death is a lesson to House Stark not to meddle in the business of House Lannister. For farther north, Eddard's wife Catelyn Stark has taken Tyrion Lannister, brother to Jaime, prisoner on the King's Road. Sir Jaime and his retinue leave, and Eddard, who was maimed in the fight, cradles the body of Jory in the grimy street of the capital. Eddard replaces Jory in position, but never in spirit, and sends his dear friend's body to the Silent Sisters, who can prepare it and carry it back to Winterfell to lay to rest beside his grandfather. Of course, Jory is in the thoughts and prayers of some in the following entries of A Song of Ice and Fire, but his tale in the physical realm perishes along with him outside a brothel, in service to his best friend. Out of all the men in King's Landing, and out of all those who stand opposite in temperament and goals to the Lannisters, Jory Cassel seems one of the most harmless. This is not because he is incapable. He is, after all, captain of the guard for House Stark, but because he is loyal and dutiful, and only follows the commands of the reserved Lord Eddard. Unlike some, Jory is not impulsive, and so is hardly the first cause of trouble. Yet, merely due to whom he serves and the circumstances surrounding his liege lord, he is in harm's way. When Lord Eddard Stark and Sir Jaime Lannister clash in the streets of King's Landing, Jory stands staunch among the Northerners, which ultimately earns him only death. He is killed at the command of a man who, at that time in the narrative, is a detestable scoundrel, and Jory crumples lifeless to the ground, too far from his home. Sir Jaime uses Jory's death as a lesson to the North and all those who oppose the Lannisters in power, and the murder feels above all unfair. Sir Jaime doesn't need to kill Jory to send a message, but he does so anyway. A man who is only following orders, a man who is far less twisted than most of the people in King's Landing, is one of the first to meet his demise in a quickly brewing conflict. The War of the Five Kings has yet to thunder into full motion, but if Lord Eddard's death is its catalyst, then Jory Cassel's is its warning sign. Even if Lord Eddard is a more familiar face, the death of Jory Cassel still rocks the foundation of all when reading it, as it now feels the stakes are actually extremely high, and the main players in the Game of Thrones are actually walking upon a razor's edge. Jory is wrenched away from life too soon, but he is quickly joined by many of his fellow Northerners, heralding that winter is indeed coming. Whenever the wolves and their allies left the boundaries of the hardy North, bloodshed usually followed. Nevertheless, Jory Cassel faithfully accompanied his best friend and lord to King's Landing, serving as captain of his guard, and as supreme confidant. Lord Eddard Stark quickly became entangled in a web of deception almost too complex to discern, and when his meddling overreached, he and Jory both met armed opposition. While Eddard clung to life for a bit longer, Jory Cassel died in the street as a lesson to House Stark. He was a good man, but good men did not thrive, or even survive, in King's Landing. In the scheme of a greater conflict, Jory Cassel was a petty casualty. So, that's all for this video. Leave a comment with your thoughts. I'd love to hear them. Leave a like if you enjoyed, and subscribe if you're new here. I'd love to have you. Visit my website, russellawellsauthor.com, for exclusive fiction and more, and sign up for my mailing list for free exclusive content. The links for both are in the description below. So, like always, I will see you next time.